Hey everybody, welcome back to another Full Self-Driving Beta video. My name is John and I cover full self-driving in the city of Chicago. It's bright outside, it's 5:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I'm really excited to do this test. I especially like doing these in the city because it's a dynamic environment. There's a lot of things going on. I've been testing beta since October 24th, 2021. Really excited to be here with version 11.4.1. Let's see how well it performs today. All right, so this is my first time testing this version in the city of Chicago. I love that it's daytime outside and it's 5:30. Previously, when I'd film, it would be pitch black. Well, I've been using this beta, full self-driving, for 19 months now. So that's a year, 7 months, which is pretty extensive experience. And I'm very fortunate and lucky to be able to say that I have not had any accidents. It has been close where it will force me into a dangerous situation, but I always take over. I try to push it to the very extreme limit whenever I can. Here, the car is creeping out. It's checking for visibility. You can see the people on the side of the road. It comes out really nice and smooth. No issues here. I'm heading straight east toward the lake, and then I'm going to go onto Wacker Drive. And it actually calls out Lower Wacker Drive there on the maps, and then all the way over to Lakeshore Drive, and then I'm going to be heading north along the lake. So getting there, I have this enabled, and I really don't have too many issues. You'll see a couple things pop up in this video. Unfortunately, it's very rare. In fact, I've never had a flawless drive in the city. There's just too many variables, too much stuff moving around. It's too crazy. Look at that bicyclist going by. They change into a motorcycle for a split second there. I thought that was interesting. The cameras are picking up all the people. For anybody that is not aware, there are 8 cameras on the Tesla Model 3. I'm driving a long-range rear-wheel drive. It said that it was slowing down, limiting the max speed there, and a car was coming out. It slowed down really nicely for that. Right at this stage, I'd be getting over into the left lane, and the beta is not doing that right now. But then suddenly it does decide to move over, so it made me happy. Look at the dog crossing the street. There's no visualization of a dog. I haven't seen a dog show up on the screen for quite a while. You can see this lady on the left side walking her dog as well, and yet again, it doesn't show up on the screen. And you'll see on the right side here in a second, another person walks by with a dog, and it doesn't display that dog either. So I don't know why it doesn't display the dogs, but it used to. It used to display them pretty well, and especially if they were right in front of you. As soon as the light turns green, my car begins to move, and it goes through this intersection, and this lane kind of becomes 2 lanes, but not really. And this is what happens a lot in Chicago is you have these lanes that get really wide, and there's no indication of whether it's 2 lanes or 1 lane. And if you're new to driving in the city, it's very confusing. So beta kind of stays a little bit to the left. You can see the alignment is a little bit aimed toward the left. Now, if I were driving, I would be tucked over to the right side a little bit more. I don't know, it says no parking, no standing, or something like that on the left on the sidewalk there, so I don't think you can park there. There is a taxi cab up above there, or in front of me, excuse me, that is zooming ahead there to cut in. So depending on how assertive a driver is, you can use that lane, I suppose, but beta chooses to avoid that entirely, which is good. That's the right thing to do, I think. Comes up here, there's a car with their hazard lights on. It goes around them really nicely. And you'll see coming up here, we're going to be turning left on an unnamed road. And at this point, I start wondering to myself, why is it an unnamed road when it said very clearly before that we'd be going onto Wacker Drive? So I display the maps here coming up just to see that. But look at all these people at the intersection. It picks up a majority of them, but it doesn't show all of them. I mean, it's kind of like a blob of people, right? There's a race going on in downtown Chicago. JP Morgan, I think, was sponsoring a race this evening. And I'm well before the race. I think the race was starting at 6 o'clock, so I'm not going to hit any of that traffic or any roads being blocked. Coming up here, it's turning left,
And again, this is that unnamed road. Now look at all these people crossing the road. You can see they turn blue and the car is waiting. This always gets a little bit uncomfortable for me because normally as a human driver, you'd push the car out there in anticipation of these people passing. So the car behind me goes around. It turns out they were going straight, but now there's another person behind me, making me uncomfortable. The car starts to creep, and I wonder, is it going to go down there right there on the left, or is it going to go all the way? And it decides to go all the way. So if the car had chosen to go left there, that would have been lower whacker drive. And that could have been an adventure all in itself, but it chose not to do that. You could see right next to that FedEx truck, or that UPS truck, there was a motorcycle or a moped that showed up really clearly there. All these people standing around doing a really nice job. But coming up here is the first disengagement. And I was very disappointed with this, actually. You can see right here the light turns red. The car goes past the white line, so I'm actually jutting out a little bit. But look at this. It starts to creep, and it's still creeping. And people are starting to cross the road on the right. And I'm like, okay, maybe it'll stop. And at this point, I'm like, no, it's still creeping, and it's a red light, so I'm going to have to disengage. That was really unfortunate. I was disappointed. It should have known not to go. So now I'm kind of jutting out and wondering, do I go in reverse? But there's actually people walking behind me now. I'm not in the way of traffic, but definitely the positioning is not appropriate. So when I see other people testing beta in California and other states and posting these flawless drives, it really makes me wonder, how are they achieving that success? Because it's very rare for me ever to get a flawless drive. I almost always have to disengage and most certainly intervene in these types of environments. Now, in the suburbs, I have a little bit better success. However, it still presents issues, even on roads where it's just going straight. I always encounter some awkward merge situation, or it's really just has to do with other people around me. And, it depends on the roads too. Sometimes it will try to turn and it will miss the turn. So coming up here, I'm taking a look to make sure that we know exactly where we're headed, and it's going to follow the curve with the road here and head east along the river. So coming up here, I don't think it's this bridge, but a bridge further along here. I think it's the next intersection. This is kind of cool, the scenery here. You can see the blue line CTA going across. This is typical Chicago environment. I mean, if I had the audio recorded with the city sounds, it would be really cool to hear. In fact, I'll have to do that in the next video. I was talking in this one, and the audio wasn't so great because I had my window down, and it just didn't turn out, so I'm having to do a voiceover for this video. But you can see it goes over or under this bridge just fine. No issues there. But take a look here. This is another thing that happens regularly that just makes beta very uncomfortable for me. It's putting on its right turn signal. It's creating mixed signals for people around me. They think, obviously, that I'm going to be changing lanes. In fact, it's really indicating that it's following the curvature of the road. So it stays in its lane. It thankfully stops indicating that it's going to be changing lanes and continues forward. So at this point, I'm a little bit irritated because it's just making me uncomfortable. And again, when I'm testing and driving for these videos, I am pushing it to the limit and really being flexible to allow it to do these things that just are not very natural. Whereas if I was driving without filming a YouTube video, I would probably be canceling out of it or driving manually, to be honest with you, because it's just really not ready for these types of environments. I mean, it can be ready if you allow it to make mistakes and to confuse other people, but I generally tend to be more on the considerate side of just being polite to other people. And unfortunately, with the way that it operates, it just really it doesn't it doesn't give other people a very comfortable feeling. Now, maybe people don't care. I might be overanalyzing things. I tend to do that a lot. But I do have a GoPro camera on top of my car. So if the car is doing something strange, I think other drivers are seeing that camera and realizing, oh, there's something going on here. So this is the bridge that I was telling you about. So watch what happens. As I go through the intersection, the light turns yellow and my car proceeds to slow down. Now, I'm not sure whether it's slowing down because the light turns red or what, but it just basically stops here. So it makes it really uncomfortable. This girl crossing the road, she's like, what's going on? So I do press it forward. The car in front of me turns red, indicating that it could be a forward collision warning. That was really irritating because it was like beep, 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 beep coming into my car. But I did push it forward to get myself out of the intersection. So not the best situation there. That is an intervention. So one disengagement, one intervention. Now watch, someone comes up behind my car. Look at that, just slide into place. Isn't that crazy? So that was interesting, and I think the cameras maybe might not have picked them up appropriately and then just kind of zoomed straight in. So I found that pretty funny. I didn't recognize that or see that happen until after I was editing this video. As you can see, all these cars here in front of me are turning left, whereas I'm going straight. So this is a little bit uncomfortable because I want to go straight, and I'm being patient and dealing with it. But the car is doing a decent job, I would say. So all these cars here, like I said, are turning left, and my car is waiting and waiting and waiting. And at this point, I say to myself, why am I waiting for nothing? I want to go around these cars, and it's kind of silly to be sitting here because my left turn signal is not on. So I force the right turn signal on to see how well it can go around these cars. So I give it some more time because, of course, I'm being as patient as possible, hoping that it will figure itself out. And sometimes it does, but in this case, it just did not. So I turn on the right turn signal. It starts going forward. Now watch what happens. It gets into the other lane, and then the tentacle says, okay, I'm going to go over there, and the car's right behind me, so I'm in the middle of both lanes. That was a cringe moment for me, unfortunately, but I let it continue to do what it was doing, and thankfully it straightened itself out. But another one of those situations where it's just very unusual behavior. So we're waiting for the light to turn green here. Beautiful scenery here in the city of Chicago. Going straight toward the lake at this point. And I love that it's light outside. This is just the perfect environment to be driving in. Going through this intersection, I don't have any issues, which I'm very thankful for, although it does make me uncomfortable. Oh, I take that back. You know what? I remember this now. So here's a bicyclist going through. Watch this taxi driver. So they come forward, and my car keeps going, and it almost hits them. And I think it probably would have stopped, but it was just too uncomfortable for me. So that's the second disengagement. Now I'm hanging out in the middle of the intersection, and it's red. So technically I broke the law there, but everybody else is breaking the law as well. It's pretty common in Chicago. So I don't feel too bad about that. Now this truck gets in front of me into my lane, and the car gets awfully close, and it starts creeping a little bit here, and it makes me uncomfortable here. You'll see here in a moment. So these types of situations always make me wonder, and actually it's not even on right now. I'm still driving manually. So I'm debating when to turn it back on. If I were to turn it back on now, it would maybe do it. So I decide to myself, okay, let's test it and see what happens. So I do turn it back on here, and you'll see that in just a second. There we go. So right after I turn it on, you can see it's starting to creep. And here it keeps going, and I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. So thankfully it stopped, but it made that situation very uncomfortable for me yet again. And that is a common theme for me down in Chicago. It just is really not ready for prime time. In the suburbs, a little bit more comfortable, but I do still have some false slowdowns. I do have some situations where it just, it can't handle like roundabouts and certain stop signs. Like there's some intersections where there's a stop sign at a four-way stop, and on the opposite side of the road, the stop sign is facing me, like it's a double-sided stop sign, and it will actually go across to the other side and then stop. So things like that are just a little bit, they're not perfected. So there's a lot of situations where you do have to intervene or take over still, even in the suburbs. So we're at this intersection here, and you can see this person here crossing. They're not blue, but the other person was there temporarily. I love how it zooms out. The screen here has not been glitching very much, but as soon as I get out on Lakeshore Drive, the signal, I think, drops off. And I've been trying to figure out exactly when the signal is there and when it's not there. And there's an LTE strength. There's some bars that you can check to see the strength of the signal, but I don't think that indicates the GPS connectivity. So if somebody is aware of how to find out how strong the GPS signal is, please let me know, because that would be really great information for me, because I am suspecting that when the screen glitches like it does on my Intel Atom Hardware 3 computer, the GPU just really freezes up, and it's kind of like a buffer overload. All the elements will disappear, and then they take a while to come back again. So it just feels really uncomfortable. And when I have passengers in the car, it also just doesn't present itself very nicely. You know, people are wondering what's going on with this screen. So it changed lanes really nicely here, and you know, I'm not experiencing any issues at this point. It's pretty comfortable and a lot of red lights. And this is prime time, you know, rush hour right now. So this is a Thursday evening, and I'm at Wabash Avenue. I don't know how you say that. Wabash? Someone can explain that, how to pronounce that. But there's the Trump Tower on the left, and we're just waiting for this intersection for the light to turn green. So here we go. All right. Coming through this intersection, no issues here either. When we do get up toward the bridge, there's like an underground bridge area, we do have an issue. So it gets in the left turn lane here by mistake, and then it realizes it and comes back out. Thankfully, nobody was behind me, but I was like, what is going on? And look at this, it reroutes. For some reason, it feels like it missed that. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe this is a moment when the GPS connectivity is not there. So I do check to see if I have a strong signal from the LTE standpoint, and I do have full bars. So you can see there the LTE strength is very strong. So I'm not sure why it made that mistake. A little bit of an issue maybe with the planner, not sure, but definitely strange behavior there. It caught me off guard why it was getting in the left turn lane there. Sometimes it will do that, and then it will carry all the way through, and then realize it made a mistake, and then reroute, and then you just take extra long. And that's why it's not robotaxi ready. You know, that's not appropriate if you have people in your car, or you know, the car's driving itself, obviously. So coming up here, this is where I was mentioning it got a little bit weird. So the lane selection, you'll see once we get up past this point, is a little bit unpredictable. So right here, there's a barrier or a median, and you can see my car's kind of going straight toward it. And thankfully, it figured it out and stayed away from there. So it comes down here and it slows down. Watch this, 33 miles per hour, and then right here, 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, slowing down. Nobody behind me. 19, 20. So I had to step on the accelerator. It was just getting uncomfortable for me because it seemed like it was going to be stopping there. And someone else, as you can see, was coming up behind me as well. So I did not want to, again, create those mixed signals. So up here, we're turning left onto Lakeshore Drive, which is also US 41 North. And right up in this area is where they have the Ferris wheel and Navy Pier. It's a beautiful spot in Chicago. This is a top tourist location. I think there's like a children's museum, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time since I've been inside of the Navy Pier, and I've never taken a ride on that Ferris wheel. I'm going to have to try that out with my daughters. So I'm kind of zooming in on part of the museum campus, and I'm trying to remember where the planetarium is, and there's an aquarium down there. There's the Adler Planetarium, and I'm trying to remember the name of the aquarium. But there's a lot of really nice museums down in this area. So we are heading north now on Lakeshore Drive, and I take a look at where we're headed here. Thankfully, no issues here. I'm a little bit, as it was going through that intersection, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know if it was going to be able to choose the correct lane, but it did just fine. Not perfectly fluid, but it did make its way through there. And we're going left here. There's quite a bit of traffic, so I end up sitting in traffic for a while. At this point, it's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to fast forward through this. The cars are creeping quite a bit, and I have an opportunity to kind of relax a little bit. But then what happens here, I'll get to it, is the car starts not moving, and it makes me really irritated that it just was misbehaving. So I did have to intervene multiple times in this small stretch here. Okay, so here is where it starts. You can see now a gap is forming between my vehicle and the one in front of me. And at this point, it gets a little bit too far of a distance, and I do have to intervene to push it forward. And I'm curious at this point whether the reason is because this is not a lane. As you can see, there are no lines on the road, and it's not showing any vehicles in front of the car in front of me, even though there are like probably 5 or 6 cars stacked up in front of them. So it's not seeing them, and I'm thinking maybe it's believing that it needs to get into the right lane. But as you can see, there's no turn signal going on, and now another gap is forming. So I do confirm that I'm in the assertive setting. I move it over to the average and then back to assertive. Assertive is the only setting that's appropriate for these types of city environments. And look at this. So someone takes advantage of the gap. I did have to step on it again. It's just not moving quickly enough. So sometimes when you're sitting in the passing lane and you want to get over to the right, you can put it into chill or average and it will get over. But typically multiple cars have to pass you before it realizes that it's in the passing lane. And that's still a nuisance, and it still exists with this latest version of Beta 11.4.1. I'm hopeful that everybody will get updated to the latest version here soon. I don't know when 11.4.2 is coming out. It may even skip a version to go straight to 11.4.3. I have no idea. But there again, I had to push it forward. It's still not closing the gap. You can see the lake straight ahead. That's Lake Michigan. Beautiful view of the lake. And really nice day at 67 degrees outside. Perfect weather to be outdoors. And Lake Michigan is pretty much like a ocean. I mean, it's massive. It's besides Lake Superior, it's one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. So I just sent a snapshot to the beta team. You can see that camera icon in the top right because I keep having to intervene. I can't even tell you how many times I had to step on the accelerator to try to get it to move forward here, and it still had issues. So at this point, my screen starts glitching, and you can see it freezing, and this I notice right away. So again, I'm having to step on it, and as you can see, now it's definitely the right time to merge. Thankfully, it did merge correctly here, but I did report it once again because this situation is just not good. And look at the glitching now. So this is what's interesting to me is why it starts glitching now after I've been driving for a good 20 minutes or so. I don't know what causes it to glitch like this, and it does seem to be kind of random. And sometimes it will happen, like, right when I start my drives, and then other times it will happen after I'm driving for a while. So at this point, I'm kind of irritated that it's doing that, and it doesn't get any better. And I'm a little bit kind of, bored. When you're stuck in traffic like this, there's not a lot to do. And if you're on the highway, by the way, and you don't have a bunch of cars like merging and stuff like this, and there's some unpredictable elements on this road, so it's not like I can just sit back. But on the highway, when it's clear cut, the lanes are painted really well, and the environment. Look at this, it's glitching like crazy. So, super annoying. But on the highway, it's kind of something where you can sit back a little bit and relax. But with this type of environment, definitely not. However, I still get impatient and bored, so I'm thinking to myself, should I play around to see if I can try to prevent the glitches from happening? And I decide to myself, no, there's not really any point because I've tried that before and I've documented it in my videos. However, it still irritates me and I still hold out hope that I can somehow fix it. So I go ahead and hold down on both scroll wheels at this point. And what will happen when you do that is it will reset the screen and beta will still operate in the background. So if it changes lanes, it will turn on the turn signal. There it says changing lanes to follow route. So it's merging here. I'm giving it a chance to kind of get through this mess with the merges because I like to see what it's doing. If you are resetting the car, if you're cycling power and it tries to change lanes, you can't even hear the turn signal tick-tock sound. And it is turning it on, but you have no idea what it's doing because obviously you can't see what's happening. Now, I hope maybe in the future that it will be impossible to reset the car while you're driving. However, today, right now, it is possible to have a black screen while you're driving. And what's amazing is that everything works completely normal, just like normal. You can, and this, by the way, does not apply just to beta. This applies to autopilot. This applies to regular driving. You can cycle power and operate the car just fine. You can step on the accelerator. That works. You can park the car. That works. All of that stuff go in reverse. No problems. But you just don't get any indication of what the car is doing. So here it is. I cycle power and something very, very disappointing happens here. So it's still in autopilot, or in other words, beta is engaged. So it's staying in its lane and it's processing all the traffic around it. If it needs to change lanes, it will do that. But because I can't see anything on the screen, I don't catch the apply slight turning force to the steering wheel message. And that's showing up right now. And it's blinking blue. And it keeps blinking blue and blinking and blinking and blinking. And I suddenly start hearing these sounds in the car. And even when I was recording the audio, it was hard because I had my window down. It was hard to hear the sounds in the car, but it was making some unusual sounds. And then it turned on its hazard lights. It was kind of going like beep, 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 beep. And it wasn't very audible. It was kind of like a system sound. Like if you remember way back in the day when you had Windows 95 and you would cycle power to the computer, you'd hear like the computer itself making sounds. It wasn't from the speakers, but it was like internal to the computer. And that's the same thing here. It was making these unusual sounds. And I was like, that's weird. So I had to step on the accelerator here because it was not moving. And that's when I realized, and because obviously it was after the hazard lights had gone on, that's when I realized that beta was not enabled anymore. So now I'm thinking to myself, what just happened here? And I do realize that I, basically got a strike. So I confirm that here shortly, and I'm just really disappointed. The traffic is moving slowly enough that I get a chance to stop here coming up at this light. And the way that you can confirm if you have a strike, if you suspect that you got a strike, is, see, it says here, auto steer unavailable for the rest of this drive, because I was just now trying to turn it back on. That's the first indication. If you try to turn it on, it will say auto steer unavailable for the remainder of this drive. So first of all, if you got a strike, you're going to see that red steering wheel icon show up. I did not see that because I was cycling the power. But then you'll see that message, auto steer unavailable for the remainder of this drive. And that, unfortunately, is a bad sign. So right here, I put it in park, full self-driving beta warning. Telemetry from your vehicle indicates improper use of FSD Beta. Please keep your hands on the wheel and remain attentive at all times. FSD Beta will no longer operate if autopilot disables 4 additional times. So that's my first strike. I do have 4 more, but the feeling when you get a strike, it's horrible. It really, really depresses you. So at this point, I'm just my thoughts are completely consumed by the fact that I got a strike. So it's saying, please keep your hands on the wheel. So what happens is after you get your first strike, it starts getting a little bit more strict on paying attention. And it will ask you to put more force on the steering wheel more frequently. It will ask you to pay attention to the road more. And then after your second strike, it becomes even more strict. So you really want to avoid strikes as much as you possibly can, because it just starts getting more and more stringent, unfortunately, and it just makes it less enjoyable to use it. But here I have it on, and now I'm my hands on the steering wheel. I'm paying complete attention. This is one of those things where you kind of feel like now you are in the doghouse and you have to really pay attention. So I don't like these types of situations. I had 4 strikes for a long time, and I was hesitant to use beta, and I certainly don't want to be back in that position. Now, if you do have 4 strikes, or if you, for example, lost beta because you had 5 strikes, or if you don't have a camera inside of your car, you have 3 strikes. Let's say that you got 3 strikes and now you're completely out. In other words, you can't use beta at all. You will have an opportunity to come back into the program. It just is when Tesla releases a software update. So it's going forward here just fine. I don't have too many issues here for the remainder of this Lakeshore Drive. So I'm going to fast forward. Here you can see the screen glitching yet again. So it's proof that cycling power does not fix that issue. I do suspect that it has to do with connectivity, and not the cellular connectivity, but with the GPS connectivity. All right, so here it is, indicating to get over one more time. And the car behind me, there's not enough of a gap on the right side, I should say. So there's a small gap there, but not enough for the car to squeeze in. It did indicate that it was going to be turning right and to get into that lane. And now at this point, I'm realizing that that's not the place to turn right, because you can see all those people are getting off at that exit there. And I've got still a half mile before we need to get over. So the car proceeds forward. Now is the time when I would be getting over, and perfect. The right turn signal goes on. It does a nice job there getting over. Another Tesla in front of me. I'm seeing more and more Teslas on the road. Up in the suburbs, there's a new service center that was built in Schaumburg. And there's also a couple other. There's one in the city. And then there's one other one where I actually picked up my car. And I'm trying to remember the name of that service center. But if you are in Chicago, there's options, and usually they're not too far away. Choosing right fork to stay on route. That's pretty cool. That's the first time I've seen that before. So it does indicate it's getting over here and goes through this area. It's going to be turning left here. Left turn signal goes on. And it was back off again and then back on. So I'm letting it do its thing here. And I always debate with myself, how is it going to handle this? And wondering if it's going to do a good job or not. You can see that the trash receptacle there on the left, it's showing up really nicely on the side of the road. Both stop signs are being displayed. There's another stop sign ahead that it chooses to ignore, which is great. Good that it doesn't pick that up. There's the bicyclist crossing there showing up. I think they were in blue, which is kind of strange because it's turning left. It shouldn't be yielding to them. But the cars on the right are blue. Okay, there we go. It goes through just fine. So I was very happy with the way that it did that. That felt very natural. I didn't feel like I was disturbing anyone around me, and that's always the biggest concern there. So coming through here, the lane selection was great going under that bridge. It decided to go to the right. It didn't interrupt the flow of the traffic, and it kept a good pace going through there as well. So no issues there. That felt really good. All right, the light turns green here. I don't recall too many issues in this neighborhood area. I love the visualizations. You saw that motorcycle going. There are a lot of bicyclists, so a lot more stuff going on down in the city for sure. And it's great to see all these parked cars on the side of the road. You know, it's picking those up really well. I was considering trying to find a parallel parking spot opportunity just to demonstrate that, but I was in a little bit of a rush to get to this location that I'm heading to here, and I didn't want to interrupt that. And then also there's a lot of traffic around as well, so it would have been a little bit awkward to try to test that here. But if you've stuck through and you're still watching this video, I want to say thank you so much for your time watching my content. It means a lot to me. I don't have any official sponsors, so I do rely on ads for my channel, just like any other YouTube content creator. It means a lot if you hit the like button and if you share my videos. If you enjoy my content, I would like to hear in the comments anything that you have. Any feedback is much appreciated. I do have some videos coming up here with roundabouts in the suburbs, and I really want to get out and test with some dummy figures and to see how safe this latest version of beta is. I have a feeling it's a lot safer than it used to be, and even back then it was very safe compared to other vehicles. Tesla does a really good job with safety. Now look at this, the dog crossing the road yet again. It doesn't show up. I haven't seen a dog in forever on the screen, and right there it was immediately in front of me, and I'm at the front of the line. So I don't know. I mean, if you have beta and you've been testing it and you're watching my video and you've seen, like, here we go, here's another dog. Yet again, doesn't show up. That's clear as day. That is a dog, right? It shows up as a little blob, kind of the occlusion network that they added. So it's just bizarre to me that dogs don't show up anymore. Bicyclists show up just fine, but not any dogs. But yeah, no. If you've been testing it and you're having different experiences, or you have something that you have tested and have had great success with, or maybe have had some failures and would like to see how it reacts in different environments, let me know. I'd be happy to test it here in Chicago. I do have some other thoughts and ideas on other content to create, but I would love your feedback on what you would like to see as well. So I'd like to keep it interactive. I do read all comments, and I try to reply to all comments as well. So I'll fast forward through the rest of this video. It's pretty uneventful. All that happens here is it turns right, and then I'm at my destination. And from there, I do take over to pull it into the parking lot. So thanks again so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great day.